Good morning, CLC. I invite you now to let's just take a nice, deep, cleansing breath together, breathing in the shining light that is today. And as you breathe out, release all stress and tension. Release all anxiety. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath. And as you release this breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here, now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept, knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me. I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
I have all this open for one quote. You'd think I could have memorized it, but no. And I'm going to spend the first part of this talk responding to the lyrics of that song. When you take... Which won't be on YouTube, so it'll make no difference to those people whatsoever. What is he talking about?
Tell them the name of the song. They can look it up.
Put your hand in the hand of the man who stilled the waters. Okay. The God of my understanding is not a man, but I get it. And to the ancients, it was simpler to have a family dynamic going on with deity. Could have been mom, could have been dad. Let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. Let's go to a principle. Let's go to a presence that's not humanoid, but that has humans within it. Let's go to something that is infinite and eternal. And that was what I talked about last week. And if you'd like to know more about that, it's on Facebook and YouTube. And while I'm at it, let me mention, it would be lovely if you would like our Facebook page. It would be lovely if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. What happens then, it costs you nothing, but others see this and they think, ooh, that's a happening place, you see, and the next thing you know. So last week was about there being one life, that life being the deity, that life being the source of all that is, in the origination of a process we call spiritual mind treatment, a 5-step process of affirmative prayer. It's the form of prayer that we teach in this place. Although we don't teach it exclusively, we don't say, now you stop with the Our Fathers and the Hail Marys. Okay, you knock that stuff off, and you just use our form of prayer. No, it's a method of conducting consciousness to a place of alignment with the truth of your own being. I know that sounds like a lot of psycho-blather, but it does that. The inference, the basis, I guess you'd say, of all of this is the idea that God, or whatever you want to call God, is all there is. Everything that exists is an experience that God is having of itself in this world at this time by means of that experience. This includes people, places, things. It includes past, present, and future. God is all there is. There is no enemy to God. There's no opposition to God. The most there is, or if you want, the worst there is a hesitation to accept the ubiquity of God. And where we usually do that is within ourselves. We'll say, well, I can understand how others and conditions and things are of the deity, but not me, because you don't know my story, because I have a past. You don't know my background, right? And it's in that personal alignment that we are focusing today. In the second step of this process, the first having been that there's one life, that life is God, that life is all the life there is. Today we come to the verbiage that sounds like that life is my life right now. That life is my life right now. And folks, this is the toughest one to accept. This is the one where people really, it can take a while, to settle into this. This life is my life right now. It's also the life right now that you're actually having, that I'm actually having. It's not the life, the ideal life we'd like to have one day. It's that too, but it starts right here, right now, right with what's going on. This life is God's life through me. Problems, distractions, disappointments, delays, it's all part of the one. So is satisfaction, achievement, accomplishment, and triumph. It's all part of the one. To accept within the self that right now, where I am, something holy is happening. Something sacred is happening. So I was thinking about, and it's funny you bring that up, put your hand in the hand of the man. That's comforting to some people. That's nice to have a big old hand. Big old, like you're a little kid, and there's this big old hand, big old hairy kind of hand, calloused farm hand. Picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille, or something. Anyway, and you put your hand in the hand, and now you don't have to worry. Now you don't have to. You also, you know what else you don't have to do? When you put your hand in that kind of a hand, you don't have to make any decisions. It takes you where it wants to take you. Which is why I want to differentiate on behalf of the founder of these teachings, Ernest Holmes, and his writing, and those of us who've studied this for some time, I want to differentiate between the will of God and the patterning intelligence of God. Because the will of God would be you putting your hand in a big old hand that then takes you where it wants to take you, and were that the case, why do you have the capacity to doubt? Why do you have the capacity to wonder? Why do you have the capacity to do anything beyond just obey? But a patterning intelligence says that you're crossing paths with your soul's purpose. You're running into great good, and you're also running into something that kind of rubs off your rough edges as you move through this life. And as you change the intention that you have within yourself, your path changes, your journey changes, and you cross paths with different people, places, and circumstances, or more weirdly but cool, you cross paths with the same people at a different stage in their development, just as you're in a different stage of your development. And life is different because you made a different choice. In one of our classes, which I think several of you are in right now, we have an exercise where you draw your lifeline, like on, right? Lisa's looking at it, on like butcher papers, big old lifeline from birth to where you are. And you mark critical junctures, choices that you made, discoveries that you made. Not everything's a choice. Discoveries that you made, awarenesses that lit up your life, that caused you to move in a different direction than where you had originally intended to go. And you imagine where you would be had you not made those choices or had those awarenesses and had continued on the same course you'd originally set. You begin to realize that there are multiple things going on here. In a way, you kind of meet yourself. It's sort of a doppelganger kind of thing. It's almost a parallel universe kind of thing without getting off, into that. We have enough to deal with in this one, believe me. But you circle back and you meet yourself, and sometimes you meet what Emerson said, you meet your own alienated majesty in others. Like, a part of you that wanted to create a certain body of work, let's say, or do some particular thing, You gave it up. Somebody else didn't. And they went on to invent or create or discover or compose what you had initially set out to do. And you hear their song on the radio. You see their painting hanging in the gallery. You encounter so, and it's your own alienated. It's like, I could have done that. That could have been me. This is oddly familiar to me. That's you circling back in the journey of your life to a path that you had abandoned and thought was yours alone, in the sense it would get all overgrown and kind of disappear eventually, when in fact it was part of the patterning intelligence, part of the divine spark, wanting to express itself in exuberance that would not be quiet and continued on the same wavelength, and somebody else picked up on it. And lots of people are picking up on lots of things. And similarly, as we talked about back in, I think, November, you'll have ideas occur to you for things that you don't know how to implement. You won't know how to write music, and you'll have a full song come into your head, and it's like, what do I do with this? Well, I'm not worthy, because I don't have the technique. So you'll ignore it. Well, somebody else, it'll go past you and be picked up somewhere else. We think we have no control over this process, and we actually have a deep participation in it. And how it comes about, and this really brings us to the second step of the thing of treatment, is we identify or we unify ourselves consciously with this one life. We take it out of the realm of the abstract. We take it out of the realm of this sounds paradoxical, but it's both abstract and intellectual. We take it out of the intellectual for a while. See, there's a balance that needs to be struck between the intellect and the emotions. And in our culture, in our society, in our time, we've been top-heavy on the intellect. You and I have been carefully trained in the intellect. Figure stuff out. Here's a problem, figure it out. Go to a simpler problem and factor that in. Okay, go to past experience. This looks like a thing. I was talking last week about hailstones, and they'll say, well, a hailstone, it's the size of a golf ball or the size of a grapefruit. They never say a hailstone's the size of a hailstone. It's compared to something else. So what we do intellectually is we compare the next situation to the last situation. This looks like, that looks like Joe. It's not Joe, but it looks more like Joe than it looks like somebody, you know what I'm saying? And so this is called precedent, that which has preceded. One of the great teachers in this body of work said, principle is never bound by precedent. Opinion is bound by precedent, but principle's not bound by precedent. Well, where do we go to escape precedent? We get out of our own heads. We get out of our own way. We get out of the intellect for a while. Now, before you freak out, because I've had people freak out at this point. And they'll say, what, my intellect? Oh, no, they're going to suck it out of my head. We're not the Borg, all right? The intellect is a wonderful thing, but it thinks it's everything. The intellect, or the ego self, if you prefer, prides itself on being clever and astute and competent and all this, and it thinks it's everything. It thinks it's in the driver's seat, which is why last week, when talking about the existence of a higher power, again, there's some pushback within the self. No, there's no power higher than me. But there is. There is. And the intellect is a mechanism for distilling that power down into useful, manageable pieces for the purpose of application to life. That process, however, is animated through and through by emotion. To put it another way, positive thinking will not take you where you want to go. Positive thinking is a fine thing, and it's better, I suppose, than negative thinking, than despairing thinking, but it won't do it alone. It takes feeling. It takes feeling. Affirmations are terrific things, and without feeling, they'll take you nowhere. They'll take you nowhere. Actually, that's not entirely true. Let me back up. They'll take you there really slowly. Okay? Like when you see these natural bridges and stuff, there's one in Virginia in the Blue Ridge that I've seen, you know. And they say, well, this was created by water over gazillions of years. Gazillions. Okay? That's how affirmations will work without feeling. Eventually, the feeling will break through. Because if you say to yourself often enough, realistically, that I'm whole, complete, and beautiful, and wise, and this, eventually, you either give it up or you start to believe it. And if you start to believe it, then it's got feeling around it, and so on. The second step of treatment, unification or identification, is all about feeling. It's about adding warmth, color, imagination, and conviction. That was the quote. I brought all this paperwork up here just to remember it. What do you know? Okay? Warmth, color, conviction, and imagination added to the intellectual idea. It's a question that people have. They articulate it a variety of ways, but they'll say, I love the idea of God being all there is. I love the idea of there being one life, and that life being spirit, and so on and so on. How do I feel it? And the short answer is, you just do. You just do. Go spend time with it. Go spend time with it instead of spending time with your opinion about it. Go spend time with it instead of spending so much time with other people's opinions about it. And the books and the classes and the workshops and all of this stuff that tell us how it is, including this recognizing the irony of what I just said, including this talk I'm giving right now, which I think is useful, but it's not the most useful thing there is. The most useful thing there is you go spend time with the source of your own being in a quiet place in meditation. In meditation. And there are a variety of forms of meditation, which we'll get into in detail another time. But just understand that because we like sound bites and we like to collapse stuff down into little bitty packages, you know, you think meditation is this, you know, and it's you sitting in a full lotus position, which is not everybody can do that.
Yeah, right.
After about the age of 10. We think of meditation as being Eastern. Well, it is, but it's also Western. People were meditating in the West before they met up with the people meditating in the East, and the people from the East formed the Vedanta Society and brought Eastern meditation and eventually yoga practices to this continent, and that's a beautiful and wonderful thing, but it's not geographically exclusive. Every culture meditates. What is meditation? Meditation is the space between your thoughts. Meditation is the space between the stars and the sky. Meditation is the place where you go to just be still, and like Judeo-Christian scripture says, be still and know that I am God. That I am God. Just be. No requests at this point, no transactions. Just be. Just be. Just listen. Just feel. Just feel. The yes. The affirmation of the universe. The universe is affirming you. God, I can't tell you how mistaken we are when we think that our relationship to the source of our own being is about reforming our behavior. It has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. Behavior is what behavior is. And by the time you're, I don't know, like really young, you realize there's a cause-effect relationship, that if I'm a nice person and open and generous to other people, they tend to be that way back to me. We learn all of this kind of thing. We don't have to work out a relationship with God. First of all, it's sort of a misnomer because there is no relationship to God, because to have a relationship with something, you have to be separate from it, don't you? And we're not separate from it. So we have an experience in God. And there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't need tweaking. All it begs for is listening. All it begs for is listening. But again, we've been trained for reasons that become apparent in an industrialized society. We've been trained to figure stuff out and to work with the intellect alone, and so it's going to take some new training, or more especially practice, to move into the feeling level place as often as we go into the intellect. So I'm reminded, for example, of a statement you'll hear in 12-step meetings, in 12-step cultures, groups, where it said, our best thinking got us here. Okay. Here meaning a room with tables and other suffering alcoholics or drug addicts or people who are having process addiction issues. So our best thinking got us here. Got us here. Our best thinking. Well, you can say this about everyone. I mean, our best thinking got us conflicted. Our best thinking got us neurotic. Our best thinking got us, right? Because why? We were thinking about the old stuff and trying to recombine it in new ways, which is why Scripture talks about, you remember? You don't put new wine in old skins. It's not talking about wine. It's not talking about wine skins. It's a metaphor. Jesus taught in metaphors, taught in parables. Most of the great ones did, It's like, I need a new container for this new spiritual understanding. And the new container is a whole different context for how life works. That there is one life. That life is, dare I say it, perfect. It's ideal. It's beautiful. And it's having an experience of itself through me, who is not flawless, who is not perfect in the sense of incapable of error, but who is never apart from this, who belongs to this. We all belong to this, and we're figuring stuff out. And sometimes for the purpose of soul growth and or entertainment, we cause problems for ourselves so as to have the opportunity to work them out, And that's fine, as long as we know it. And this is the thing, as long as we know it. Now, one last thing, because I can see your eyes beginning to glaze over. One last thing. In this annual series on the basics of our teaching, this being week 2 of 5, every year at some point I say, I should have said it last week, I say that we're not here, this place, to teach you what to think. We're here to show you how you can think. We're here to show you that there's a mechanism by which you think and feel and create. And next week we're going to put thinking and feeling together and talk about manifestation or realization. But this is not a spiritual teaching. I love what our founder said. He said, we're not here to try to convince anybody of anything. Man, is that different. Because a lot of spiritual teachings, they want to just open your gullet and ram down a whole bunch of theology. And this is how it is by God. And now you're on that wavelength and off you go. This is stimulating information that can be applied by anybody. That was the other thing that was true about this teaching in its earliest stages, was that it was meant to enhance the spiritual practice of every person in whatever they believed, in whatever version of God they knelt to, whatever scripture they thumbed through. It was meant to augment, not supplant. We never started out to be a standalone religion that siphoned people off of the other ones. Okay? It was meant to build something in that says, look, you're praying. You there. You're praying, yes? You're praying to the God of your understanding, whatever God or goddess or multiple gods or goddesses or what have you. Okay? And you're praying to that, right? Are you getting anywhere? Well, maybe if you believed that you were worthy to receive. Why don't you try that? And suddenly the ball is served back into your court. And it's not about what that deity thinks about you or, all of its rules and regulations. It's about how you feel about yourself. Do you like yourself? That's why we sing a song, I love myself the way I am. It's why there's so much emphasis in this teaching on self-reflection. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Just as there is, by the way, in 12-step programs called the Searching and Fearless Moral Inventory. Why do you do that if all you got to do is just put the cap back on the bottle? Because if there's not a Searching and Fearless Inventory, we'll find some other way. We'll find some other way to skirt around the edges of this thing, and keep ourselves unconscious and keep ourselves dulled to the beauty and the magic of life. So we want to know ourselves. That was our assignment last year, was to know ourselves and to know that everybody else knows themselves without pushing them around, trying to get them to change or any of this. Just to know the self. You want to know the self, go into meditation. It's really simple. Like I said, you don't have to do the full lotus. You don't have to chant and light incense. You can. It's great, and play a little music in the background. But you can also meditate on the elevator. You can meditate in the car. You can meditate while you're walking the dog. You can meditate while you're doing the dishes. There's a form of meditation called karma yoga, which is the yoga practice of everyday service of just doing the laundry, folding the laundry, whatever. There's a certain rhythm to life, and you can meditate that way. And what are you going to meditate on? Well, meditating on something kind of takes it out of the realm of meditation, doesn't it? All of a sudden, now I'm thinking about it. See, one way to tell you're not meditating is when you're thinking about meditating. But in meditation, you just say, tell me who I am. Great I am. Tell me who I am. Show me who I am. And now I'm going to be still. And I'm going to listen. And if a thought enters my head that's disruptive of this, many techniques arise to this, but what I like to do is I just watch it go by. Like the river, I just watch it go by. And if I don't reject it or interact with it, it just goes by. And eventually, because it doesn't get a rise out of me, it stops happening. And then I'm meditating. Another form of meditation you can use is to try to think about everything all at once, rather than trying to not think about anything at all. Trying to not think about anything at all is going to have you think about lots of stuff, including everything you should have done this week that you didn't get done, right? But if you try to think of everything at once, what happens is, like the universe, the night sky, that kind of thing, you try to think of everything at once, what happens is you blow a fuse. And you're meditating because you can't contain the thought anymore. These are just some thoughts on this, but try it this week. Try it this week. Try to create some. I know you got a lot going on. It's the first of the year. You got lists a mile long, and everybody, it seems like, has been waiting until the minute the holidays were over, right? To give you lots of stuff to do. Here's the IRS. Here's now it's almost time to remember, man. We're into the first quarter of the year, right? So I know that saying here's another thing to do is like, oh, God. Here's another thing to not do. Meditate. Set aside a little time just to be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am. And watch what happens. They will tell you. Your metabolism will change. Your heart rate will slow. Your blood pressure will drop. Your galvanic skin response will change. You'll digest your food better. Is this wildly over-promising? You be the judge. You be the judge. Take some time this week to go within and just commune with the source of your own being. And next week, I'll have some ideas for you on having done that. Now, the part you've all been waiting for. How do I manifest things? How do I achieve my great destiny? Okay? Come back with some meditation under your belt, and we'll pick it up from there and go into realization and manifestation. So, thank you very much. Lisa will close us with treatment at the end of the service so you can hear what one sounds like, one of these full 5-step deals. They're really quite sweet, and she's very good at it, too. It like comes naturally to her. So, all right? Very good.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your love, your energy. Thank you for your time, your presence, and thank you for all of your monetary donations. It's because of what you give to us that we can be here and give back to you. So we love and appreciate each and every one of you. And I invite you now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
And my brain just went blank again. But that's a good thing. If I'm going to do a treatment, I don't know what I'm treating for. Blank mind is good, because that means I'm just going to open my mouth and see what comes out. This is the point of practice. It is a spiritual practice, but we call it a practice because we practice it. So if you are well practiced in the steps of treatment, when you don't know what to treat for, Spirit always does. And Spirit will provide those words for you. But I am going to use a jumping off point. We have, and you'll hear it called St. Bridget's Day, you'll hear it called Candlemas, you'll hear it called Imbolc. It's one of the festivals, 8 of the Wheel of the Year. And Marissa and I were both looking at it going, because neither one of us know that much about this one. Because it's the end of January, the beginning of February, everything is dead, right? We are still hibernating, which is a practice I'd like to bring back. Hibernation. So we are still resting. But in that state of rest, there's also a little preparing happening. Spring is coming. And the earth does burst forth, but when we participate in that bursting forth, it's because we have planned. So, we're going to jump into the 5 steps of treatment. There is one life, one power, one presence. There is one love. And that love flows through each and every one of us. We live that life. That power is ours to call on. I align myself now with that which I am, calling on the deepest part of myself to know who I am and to know who each and every one of you are. You are brilliant lights. You are divine sparks. You are spirit in motion. You are God in action. You are love. You are the channel through which love enters into this world and makes amazing things happen. I invite you to rest in that divine love. I invite you to rest in that planning stage. I invite you into who you are at the deepest part of yourself in preparation to burst forth into the wildest version of you. And I know this with all of the gratitude of my being. I am grateful for this teaching that teaches me not what to think, but how and where to go when I don't know where to go. I am grateful for this place that provides a community of people who back each other up. I am grateful for our ministers. I'm grateful for our practitioners. I am grateful for our musicians. I am grateful for the technology that allows us to broadcast this anywhere and everywhere. And I relax and I release. I have stated my good. It is now the universe's job to bring it to me while I let go. And so it is.
Say it with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust